First of all, again, I want to recognize our Honorable Mayor Gary Norton. Give him a round of applause. Judge Norton Jr. is on my right. She's going to have 5 minutes to make a presentation, and then Tony Coyne, then Ed Jers, and then Cassie might say, and then we're going to open up for questions. We won't leave till every question is answered. These are experts in the field, so you're getting an objective opinion, not any politics, but what the facts are about merger, annexation, any question you may have. If you have a specific question, they'll speak to it. So we're going to start with our former judge for 18 years and the school board president, Dr. Munich H.R. King. Give him a round of applause.
Martin just gave me permission to sit and do this, so I appreciate that. I first wanted to talk about the East Cleveland schools and how we are doing and what we're doing. And then I would like to talk just a few minutes about what we think the merger may do if we do not have our East Cleveland schools. At this point, I want to talk about the recognition that the children in our schools have won. And if you think about it, you'll know that our schools are moving up. They are moving up in everything they're doing. We had 2 students who won 2nd and 3rd place awards for HIV awareness poster. And their artwork will be transformed and shown all over the country. We have a student who won a 3rd place award for mixed media at the state of Ohio level and received an internship at Cleveland Playhouse. We had a student who won the Better Business Award. Shaw High School went through the advanced ed evaluation process and received accreditation. 6 of our high school culinary arts students interviewed with hiring managers of the nutrition department of University Hospital for summer employment. And the managers were so impressed with our students that they said they were blown away by our students, and all 6 were hired. Wow. Students were involved in the Youth Sing Out program, which is supported by the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation. One group of students won 1st place and another group won 3rd place for creating their original song of Hate No More and Standing Up and Speaking Out, along with the plaque that they also won $3,300 for the school. 2 of our seniors received full football scholarships on National Signing Day. During signing day for boys and girls basketball, 1 student was selected to the 2014-2015 Ohio High School Basketball Coaches Association's Academic All-Ohio Team for Girls. This is an honor that is shared by only 10 young women in the state. This student has received a scholarship to the University of Akron, a full scholarship, and another student in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The Shaw High School mock trial team finished in the Sweet 16 at the state championship in Columbus, Ohio. There were 329 teams competing. Team members won outstanding attorney and witness awards at the state level and all season long. Team members were also honored at the Cleveland Marshall College of Law Black Law Student Association Awards dinner, and the team member received $1,000 scholarship there. 41 Shaw High School students were trained and hired as poll workers by the County Board of Elections, and they also were given a chance to work there during the summer. 1 student participated in the Princeton University Symposium on Race Relations. This student participated in workshops, did a presentation of work before the faculty, alumni, and other national winners at Princeton University. A youth council member received tickets and had front row seats from the City Club to attend the forum with the Honorable President Barack Obama. Serving as the keynote speaker, this student was able to meet President Obama at this very historic event. 22 students attended the Facing History and Ourselves Community Conversion on Injustice with author Byron Stevenson. He's an author and defense attorney of the critically acclaimed book, Just Mercy. In addition, prior to this event, 10 of our Shaw High School law leaders, comprised of our mock trial team and our Facing History and Ourselves senators, had an up-close and personal discussion with other Facing History leaders from across the area on this book as it relates to the death penalty Partnership Nancy Zimper Award for Best Partnership in recognition of his outstanding contribution to the preparation of teachers in the future from Cleveland State University. Now, let's go a little bit into some statistics. The Plain Dealer highlighted the East Cleveland City School District as having the fastest growing graduation rate in Northeast Ohio. From 68.20% in 2010 to 76.0% in 2013. Every elementary school in the district met the value-added metric. That's the new way that they are deciding what we're doing in the schools and how the children are growing. Mayfair and Superior both received an A rating, which means they exceeded the expected student growth in 1 year. The district also met the value-added metric for students with disabilities and students in the lowest 20% in achievement. We made gains in reading, mathematics, science, writing, social studies, and science in this last test. And Shaw High School has been upgraded from the designation of priority school for the academic improvement over the past 3 years. East Cleveland City School District is moving up, and we'd like to keep it that way. About the money and how we would keep a school if we merged. We don't know. And I say that because our property tax funds our schools. That's right. In 2012, we received $9,463,838.67 for our schools. This is from our property tax. In 2014, we received $8,397,752.49. The property tax comes from the property. If the property goes to the city of Cleveland, who gets the property tax?
Hello.
We don't know. So we don't know how we would keep our schools. We really don't. And we would have to try to replace all of that. Money is going down to the federal line because we had programs that lasted for 3 years, and those stimulus dollars are now gone. We had tuition from the other districts because, as you know, we're an open school. From anywhere and come to our district. And we have lots of children who come because they like what our district is doing. The tuition from the other districts, however, is unpredictable, so we don't really know what we get from them, what we can get from them, but we're usually getting $2,974,000, which is not bad. We've had people to say to us, why would you let those other children come into our school? When they act bad, you should put them out. They have to go somewhere. And if we can offer them what they need, then we want them to stay right there with us. A lot of schools will not have open enrollment. They won't take other children, but we do. And we're working well with them. But some of our tax revenue has gone down. Our question is, how will we keep our schools open? We can't tax you to death to keep the schools open. So we would prefer to be East Cleveland School District. We haven't been assured of that. So I would like to know how that would happen and how it could happen. So we're asking you to support us and support us as the East Cleveland School District. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Anthony Coyne. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tony Coyne. I'm a practicing attorney, and I have a specialty in municipal law and urban studies. I am not like my colleague here that went to Harvard. I went to Cleveland State, so I have to dress like an attorney. No, I know him. He's good. He's a good man. But I do have that background, and just for full disclosure too, I spent 25 years on the Cleveland City Planning Commission. I recently retired from that. And what I want to talk to you about, and I brought some outlines, so if folks want these, I'll leave them here so you can read them yourself. And I'll try to go through this sort of quickly, and I'm not presenting a position, I'm presenting a procedure if an annexation was to occur with the City of East Cleveland and the City of Cleveland. And I hope all of you had some coffee before, because this isn't the most most exciting stuff in the world. But let me just walk you through if this was a decision to be made by both communities. And also to follow up on my friend Judge Keenan here, who I had the privilege of insulting when we sat down. I asked her if she was retired, and boy was I wrong. So I apologize for that, Your Honor. But first of all, I would like to say, though, that this is just a city annexation process that I'm going to describe. It would not affect the school district. The school district is a separate political subdivision in the state of Ohio, so the East Cleveland School District would still be here, and it includes, as I understand it, the entire city of East Cleveland, and I believe a portion of Cleveland Heights. So that school district property tax would remain in effect at whatever rate that it is. And it wouldn't change unless you went through a separate additional procedure to merge school districts. So that would be a separate procedure. So from my position here, that could occur, but I'm not here to explain that part of the process to you. And it is not that uncommon in Northeast Ohio that some school districts occur in cities that are not the city, their home city, if you will. Cleveland has a section of Shaker Square that's in Shaker Heights. So if you live in Cleveland, you can go to Shaker Heights. If you live in part of Garfield Heights, you can go to the City of Cleveland School District. So it depends on where you are. And there are other communities that have multiple school districts. Mayfield is one. Mayfield Heights, Village of Mayfield, same school district. Berea has, I think, Middleburg Heights on the west side. Those cities share a school district. So from what I'm going to tell you about is just about the city-to-city annexation. So if it were to occur, let's just for the sake of discussion start with, if let's say the city of East Cleveland chose to put their toe in the water first and have a discussion, a formal discussion about, do we want to annex to Cleveland? Yeah, that would require legislative authority, and your city council would have to pass an ordinance to do that. If council didn't want to do it, but the community did, you could do that. That would take 25% of the electors, the voters in your city, to request to be annexed to an adjacent city, and we'll just assume in this case it's Cleveland. The clerk of the council, if the council passed it, would then certify that, and within 30 days, that legislative authority, the council who passed the ordinance to annex, that would go into effect, although the voters could appeal that decision. And if the council did not act on that vote, by the way, the voters could still ask for an annexation to occur. So that's the procedure that would first have to take place. So now let's assume that the council of East Cleveland votes to annex. Once that occurs, commissioners, 3 commissioners would be appointed by the council basically to present and discuss the conditions of annexation, and they have about 120 days to do that. If they can't agree on those conditions of annexation, the probate judge can appoint a party who's not a resident to look at and effectively mediate what those conditions of annexation could be. And the terms of and those commission members can also agree on those terms, and then you proceed to do the annexation with, in this case, we're assuming it's the city of Cleveland for the sake of discussion. Within 30 days after the commissioners file the conditions of annexation with their council, each must order the question of annexation, and upon conditions that are negotiated, to submit to a vote at the next regular election that the annexation would occur. So it would then go to the ballot for the annexation to occur, and once a majority vote occurs, it occurs. Now, this is a procedure that has to occur in both cities. So it's not something that can be done by one city or the other. One city can try to do it. If the other city rejects it, it's rejected. The councils can also do this on their own once they meet. If the 2 city councils want to do that, they can. However, the voters still have a right to put it on the ballot if they choose to do so. You'd have to do that within 30 days, and you would need 25% of the electors of the community. It could be Cleveland or it could be East Cleveland to put it on the ballot. So you sort of have a right to veto the action of your city council if you wanted to do that. So The one thing I will tell you, it's a public process. It hasn't happened in a long time in Northeast Ohio. I was just in Atlanta recently, and that issue has occurred more recently in Atlanta, and I think some of it has to do with water, to be candid with you, and how their water system is used. But recently in Atlanta, I mean, right now you can check it out on the internet, there is a community that's having some financial issues. Atlanta is looking to annex them, and there's a similar discussion, lively discussion about why they don't want to lose their autonomy and why they might have to do it for financial reasons. But I will conclude my comments, and I'll be glad to stick around for questions as well. But when we think about cities, I do like to think that cities, while they're all important to us, but usually you have home cities, and when you travel, you often will say you're from Cleveland. I think people from Northeast Ohio will say they're from Cleveland. And I like to think of cities as being places that shouldn't be divided by municipal boundaries when possible. So I think you should look at this very carefully about whether it's in the interest of your community and whether or not financially the city of East Cleveland can continue operating for the benefit of all the folks that live here. You know, the last series of annexations that occurred in our county really were back toward the Depression. And just a brief piece of history, and I won't give you the dates because I don't know all of the dates. When you hear of neighborhoods like Collinwood or West Park or Old Brooklyn, Glenville, a woman said, those were all cities at one time. And they didn't go out of business because, you know, the community failed. The community didn't fail. It's still a vibrant community. But financial issues reached a point where it made more sense to try to create a greater system. And so while there are certainly challenges to a larger city, and I think the speaker, I think that spoke earlier, explained that certainly can be a concern, I suppose. But you have to look at providing the best services for your community and for your children in your school system, and to provide the opportunities that you want to have people to achieve success in life. So I just look at it as something that you have to look at carefully and have a public discussion about it. It's I think, exciting to see this many people here to have this discussion. I think it's very, very important, and see what happens. But that's the procedure. I'll leave some of these outlines here for those of you that might want to read them yourself. I will say one other thing before Mr. Jerson speaks. There is another section of the code, we were talking about this earlier, that can be used that's a little bit different than what I just described, but it's more for multiple, I think it's more for, when we're talking about it as lawyers, it's more for multiple jurisdictions. So I've done annexations in my private practice. I haven't done them between cities, I'll be candid with you about that. But when I've done it, it's usually between a city and a township, and it frequently involves issues of water, sewer, or provision of municipal services. And that's when I've seen it done, and sometimes that can happen with multiple townships or multiple municipal corporations being involved. And the last thing I'll say is, when I think about our city, you know, I still think Cleveland's the biggest and best city in Ohio. But when you look at the statistics right now, Columbus is a bigger city than Cleveland. You all know that? So where Mayor Coleman is, he is a mayor of a larger city than Mayor Frank Jackson. But the reason it's like that, Columbus has annexed everything in their borders. Columbus is almost the size of Franklin County. By the way, I'm not saying this is good or bad, I'm just telling you. And they used the process of annexation because they were refusing to basically extend water lines and sewer lines. That's no longer legal, but that's what happened. So when you think about it, it's something that's happened in other parts of the state, but it hasn't happened a lot in Cuyahoga County. So with that, I'll end my comments, and I guess I'll be ready to answer any questions.
Now my friend, attorney Ed Jerson, a Harvard graduate, law school. Ed Jerson, okay. Give me a round of applause. Come on, Ed.
I think everybody's going to know where I went to law school with him. My name is Ed Jerson, and I am a former state representative. I served for 9 years, and I was also the director of regional collaboration under County Executive Ed Fitzgerald. So I was involved in a study of merger of 4 cities on the southeast side, Pepper Pike, Rolling Hills, Woodmere, and Orange. We're looking at merging. Let me say a couple things up front. Number one, mergers are extremely hard to accomplish. All the odds are against them. The company that helped us with the study of the merger in the southeast side said one of the few that had been done in Princeton, New Jersey, where Princeton Borough and Princeton Township merged together. And that took a process. I think they first started in the 1950s and didn't accomplish it until about 2011. All the odds are against the merger. Plus, it's up to the people of East Cleveland and the people of Cleveland. Don't forget, Cleveland has to accept it. East Cleveland has to accept it. If you don't want to merge, you don't have to merge. But that being said, and I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't live in East Cleveland. What I will say, and I'm not here tonight to advocate for merger, but what I will advocate for is listening to the facts and don't prejudge this issue, because there are a lot of reasons, and I'm going to give you some, why people are suggesting merger. And I don't think they're nefarious. I don't think, my gut tells me this isn't being done because people want to take away something from you or your rights. I think there are other reasons that are motivating this discussion. My suggestion is simply listen to the facts, and as I said, it's so difficult to merge, and you control it. If you decide after looking at the facts that it's not for you, that's the course you should take. Now let me play a little bit of a devil's advocate, because I think it would be helpful for you to know why people are suggesting a merger. Begin with, look at the state government. There is pressure across the board to economize. After the recession, the drop in state money, and it's not only East Cleveland, it's all the communities. They cut the local government fund. Ask Mayor Norton, ask any mayor in Ohio. They will tell you how much the state cut local government funding. You go to the higher education, the college folks, they will say we need $85 million just to get back to where we were, and we're not getting that money. They're telling us to cut more. They're talking about freezing the higher education budget. Dispatch centers. They say we're going to cut off funding for dispatch centers because there's too many of them. So we're requiring dispatch units to consolidate. I mean, there are hundreds of them in Ohio, dispatch centers for emergency calls. In Australia, there's one. And the government looks at this and they say there's too many. We've got to economize. So that's where the downward pressure is on all the communities. Now, why would East Cleveland want to merge with Cleveland? And again, this isn't my argument, but these are the arguments that are being made for you to help you understand. You begin with your tax base, which is you're struggling to make the payments on emergency services. You're struggling to do a lot of the service, provide a lot of the services. People say, well, we have our control of our destiny. The choice is not necessarily going to be, do we have 4 or 5 councilmen in East Cleveland or in a mayor, or do we have one councilman that goes to the Cleveland City Hall? The choice may be between the structure you have currently in Cleveland, East Cleveland, or receivership. If the state auditor comes in and says, you just don't have enough money to run this, he may appoint someone to run the city and say, get the finances in order. That's, I think, what they did in Detroit. And so it's not necessarily local control versus Cleveland control or participation in Cleveland control. It may be local control or state control. That's one thing. The other thing, and Norm Krumholtz, I think, was invited tonight to be here, but he couldn't be here. And he talked about, taking advantage of opportunities for development that may exist here, but that East Cleveland doesn't have the wherewithal financially to help developers get the proper loans and get the infrastructure support that they need to put certain development projects together, whereas Cleveland might have that wherewithal and that financial ability. Also, in terms of political power, East Cleveland is, 17 to 20,000 people. You have a much more clout with the city of Cleveland, where you have if Mayor Jackson goes down and talks to Governor Kasich or Sherrod Brown and Rob Portman and says, I need this for the city of Cleveland, he's got a lot more clout than someone who represents a smaller city. That's just a political reality. And you need to keep those things in mind as you look at the options that are out there. There are economies of scale. When I was Director of Regional Collaboration, we were talking about the city of Brooklyn, for example, had to have a fire truck which cost $1 million, and it was surrounded on 3 sides by Cleveland, which had all kinds of fire trucks and could easily take care of the work that they needed to have done in Brooklyn. And yet they had this $1 million truck that they were spending money on that they didn't have. So could could the county provide a lot of the services for East Cleveland? Could the City of Cleveland's fire department, which is one of the highest quality fire departments that you'll find in the state, could they provide the services for East Cleveland and alleviate some of the pressures that are on you and your tax base here? So I think it's important, as you look at this decision, to get the facts and to understand why people are suggesting that this is something to be considered. And everybody has different impressions of what's going on and whether there's somebody trying to take advantage of the city or take away rights. The flip side of it is that there may be people who genuinely believe that there is a crisis and that there are better ways to run the business. And let me make one final point when the talk that Dr. Pittman gave, in talking about the state having a $1.5 billion surplus, and every individual community can say, well, we just have a small need, and you've got $1.5 billion to take care of it. But keep in mind that you have 11 or 12 million people in the state of Ohio. You have maybe 20,000 people here. 20,000 versus the other 11 million who are all asking for that money. And the schools are asking for that money. And higher education is asking for that money. And sure, if they were only looking at East Cleveland, they could buy your ambulance, they could repair a lot of things here, but they're looking at 11 million people in cities throughout this state, all of whom are knocking on the door and saying, we want that money. And they're saying, we need a rainy day fund, and we have other agenda items, and we've got capital needs throughout the state. We've got to build highways, we've got to build buildings, we've got to take care of a lot of different things. So it's not as easy as simply saying, you know, it's not that expensive out of that $1.5 billion. That doesn't go a long way when you're talking about a state as large as Ohio. So bottom line is, there are a lot of reasons for people suggesting a merger. I don't think they're all nefarious. I think that they're based on looking at the political and economic realities of the city and saying, is there a way that it would be mutually beneficial to Cleveland and to East Cleveland to bring these cities together so that you have greater power, more ability to develop things, maybe more political clout when you're joined with Cleveland. And those are the reasons I think that are motivating people to discuss the possibility of merging these two communities. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start with the questions. We have international vocalist William Clarence Marshall with one mic and Reverend Pinckney Buster with another mic. So we're going to take all the questions. We got a little over an hour to deal with all your questions. So you came to get information, get answers. So we'll start with, Tiffany Fisher. That's group of him. So if you got a question, William Clarence Marshall over here, and I scoop up here. Oh, Mace, go ahead, Mace. Tiffany's right there.
Got the mic.
Okay. Mace has the mic. All right, go ahead, Mace. I know you have a question, don't you?
I most certainly. You have given me the mic, I guess, to hold for people, but I'll take the advantage of it since I have.
Sir, is your mic on? Because it doesn't sound like it's on.
Yeah, it's on. Where's the mic?
I think you can speak loudly. I mean, he's speaking loudly.
Yeah, I can speak loud.
Yeah, that's on. There you go.
My question, I have several questions.
One.
One for
Give everybody a chance.
my question, you alluded to Detroit, Michigan. We must be cognizant that Michigan norms does not, our norms are totally different from the norms in Detroit, Michigan, whereas the governor has that authority to usurp the voters' rights. And that's what happened. They elected their councilmen, the mayors, etc., and he had the authority to appoint a manager which usurped the authority of the electors. We don't have that kind of operation in the state of Ohio, and thank God for that. Now, number two, my second question, you alluded to the merger is a complicated matter. It's not that easy. There's a common one which you alluded to. Here I have the same thing that you just read from whatever. And it is more dealing with the council and all this stuff. But it still goes back to the people of each municipality as to voting whether they wish to merge with another municipality that is in joining district or what have you. And I have all that what you read about the clerk and all that stuff. I have it right here, what you just read. So you can pull it offline, it's online. And they have changed the norms in which from annexation. Because I think part of it came from Columbus, where Columbus was just eating up all of the area to make it one of the largest cities in Ohio. Now, I have some trepidation in reference to when you say the school is a separate entity. The school falls under the auspices of the municipality and also the, not fall under, but within that municipality and governed by those norms. So I never seen a school set separately and operate separately in a city. It has to be attached to some city. So I would like for you to elucidate further on that.
Sure, there are independent school systems, there are joint vocational school systems that are part of regions. It's a separate process. You don't have, I don't believe, unless I'm wrong on this, and by the way, it's a conversation we just started having here on it, but you don't have mayoral control of your school system, I don't believe. If you did, it'd be a different answer from me, from Tony Coyne here, but I don't believe you do. There are separately elected members of your school board, so unless somebody took separate legal action, the school system, I believe, would stay in effect until you took other steps, which would require the school board to have a similar discussion with whatever merged school system you wanted to go into. Don't forget, around here, it's not uncommon to have multiple cities in one school system. I mean, Cleveland Heights and University Heights are right up the street. South Euclid, Lyndhurst. I mean, it's not unusual. And people find it, and I, by the way, I do think the way they carved it up, I always wondered why they carved it up the way they did. And there certainly could have been bad reasons for why they carved it up. But if you look at other parts of Northeast Ohio, you have separate school systems, and you have little portions that are carved out of communities that aren't in that community's school system. They're in another. I always look at it, because I have friends that live in the Cranwood neighborhood of Garfield Heights. And it's that entire ward plus a little bit, they're in the Cleveland Municipal School District. Why that is, I don't know, but it's been like that for years. And to be candid, to finish up on the school system, you've got to remember the taxing part of this is different. The school system relies entirely on the property tax, and then they get some state funding. The city government pays for your policemen and your firemen, firefighters, and police officers. That comes from your income tax. And that's a big difference. And one of the things that's important about why a city's got to run well is because if it runs well, the property taxes are usually higher because the property values go up. And that's why the school systems are better. That's why if you look at, is it a secret in Northeast Ohio which school systems have the best facilities and sometimes the highest rated students? They're the richest school systems. They've got all the municipal or the industrial facilities, the office jobs, they've got the higher property values, the bigger houses. I'm not saying this is good or bad, I'm just saying that's the way it is. So it is a different process. I don't think the school system would be under any kind of threat, but of course, you wouldn't have the city of East Cleveland, you have the community of East Cleveland here, and that would have to be a separate process. Long answer, sorry.
Judge Keenan wants to respond to that, if that's okay, and then Dr. Cassie Pittman will respond. Go ahead,
I
Judge.
guess my question, and that question would tell me to ask another question. That would be, who would make the decision as to whether or not the schools will be a part of the schools will be separate? Because if we're going with this commission that's supposed to be handpicked by the administration or by the mayor, we would never happen. I would depend on it.
Yeah, and I would say, I think, I would just say, it would take a separate legal procedure. I'm not saying I know what that is. I wasn't prepared to talk about the school system, but it would be a separate legal procedure. And you're right. It would seem to be a logical part of the discussion, especially since you do have you do have property and students from Cleveland Heights as well. So that would be a discussion that one would think you'd have, but you don't have to merge school districts or get rid of school districts.
But we won't know that until after. So,
Well, it
I
wouldn't
don't
be,
trust it.
it wouldn't be part of the ballot measure. I think that would have to be a separate matter.
I would not trust it.
So I
Okay,
actually
Councilman
have,
Pittman, go ahead.
thank you, I have a clarifying question. So obviously people are very concerned about schools and being able to run the schools. And the question that, I forgot the gentleman's name, he essentially asks, okay, so you. Omaze. So in your experience, you said the procedure of annexation very rarely occurs. So in your experience, have you seen or know of a legal case or an actual annexation in which a school district has remained with no municipality? So the examples that you're citing, Shaker Heights is a municipality.
Right.
So even though Shaker Heights is a municipality, and people who are residents of Cleveland, which is also a municipality, may be a part of that school district because of the way that the school district lines are drawn, but Shaker Heights is a municipality. So you're talking about an example where you will have a school district but no municipality. And I think you didn't really address this question to whether or not, from your knowledge, that exists. And if it exists, which, I raised this question before, and a similar response was issued. Well, look at Cleveland Heights and East Cleveland, but Cleveland Heights is a municipality.
Right.
East Cleveland is a municipality.
Thank you.
And I'm just wondering if this is a foreseeable option for us. We need to know, where does this exist, where you have a school district and there is no municipality? So I think that's the question, which is a different question.
I will say it's an excellent question. I will tell you, I can't think of an example off the top of my head. I cannot. But I will tell you, I know of annexations of townships throughout Ohio where there's no city and there's a separate school system. Vocational school systems cover multiple areas where there may not be a city, but there's not uncommon to have several townships. And we also have county vocational education that are countywide in some counties. Some do it on a municipal level. So your question's a good one. I'm not gonna beat around the bush.
So
That definitely has to be looked at. No
Yeah, I
question.
think, so I would just echo this point. Before we go into the unknown, we have to have basic understanding of what is being presented.
Thank you.
So another point is with regard to the conditions of annexation, which is, I think there's also this point of confusion. So the commissioners are essentially negotiating what will be the terms of annexation. So let's say the commissioners say, well, what we want is, we want to have, all the roads in East Cleveland repaved. We really don't know what it is even that the commissioners can negotiate, right? So I think it leaves some confusion with regard to the school district. Or the library. So we don't know, if we don't know the parameters of what will be negotiated. I know that there's these two different procedures arguably about annexation, one which could include the schools and one which could simply include municipalities, but we still don't know what are going to be the conditions of annexation. So what are the things that we can ask for? What are the things that we can negotiate for? So I'll give an example. These are attorneys. They're experts at negotiating. I'm not. But I did have to recently negotiate with Case regarding my position at Case. So I had to understand what are the points in which I can negotiate. I can negotiate on salary. I can negotiate on having research assistants or teaching assistants. I can negotiate on vacation time, on summer salary. These are the points of negotiation. Right? So once I have an outline of what are the things in which I can negotiate, then I can go to the table and negotiate what I think is in my best interest. But we don't have a clear understanding of what the conditions or annexation are. We're being told that the school district won't be something won't be under provisions, but we really still don't know. I think that legally it won't be, because there has to be a separate petition. But what if there is a separate petition that argues, if a separate petition emerges, right, and that petition includes the annexation of the schools, and both of those petitions get to the ballot, so it still seems like there's some confusion with regard to the schools, and I think those are important questions. I'm not saying important questions that we really need to have a discussion of. We need to have answers. All those 5 people, the citizens who signed, initiated that petition, I'd like to know some answers. I'd like to know, even though I understand the logistics, okay, arguably, I'm sorry, I'm getting speaking a little passionately, and I'm not speaking objectively. So I'm not speaking from objective. I don't think there's limits to the degree to which you can be objective. So I will just declare as a caveat that I'm not going to present an objective point of view. I don't think that anyone here can present a wholly objective, but arguably they can present information from their perspective. So I'm going to do just that. But I'll just say in conclusion, I think that it is important to understand what our constraints are as a community. But even within those constraints, when we go to the negotiating table, we still need to have a clear understanding of what we are negotiating for and what we can get out of the deal and what we have to gain. We can't just give, East Cleveland has all of this land, that it owns 48% of this land, developable land. You know, all these assets, you go to the Cuyahoga County Auditor's website, you type in East Cleveland owns a lot of parcels of land.
Yes.
Would that be up to negotiation? What will happen with that? These are important sort of questions. Irregardless of the fact that we are in this financial constraint, that doesn't mean we relinquish our ability to, 1, say whether or not we think this is in our best interest, and 2, also really get clarification on issues before we're sort of thrust into this position of having to make a critical decision from which we cannot go, we cannot,
Get back out.
get back. So we need to ask, if anything that should come from this town hall is that these questions won't be answered, but we all need to be sending emails to those petitioners and to our mayor who's advocating for this for answers.